many four-letter words can I use on that?
Trying to switch to a double. Cheddar is driving. Nothing yet. Takedown, Michael Cheddar.
Oh, Nick, I'm a top guy, so I love top wrestling.
Hale trying to sink him. He does. Maximus Hale the fall.
So I think that wrestling is the greatest sport on earth.
What's going on, everybody? It's Nick Kosko with On3 Wrestling. With me today is Army Wrestling head coach Kevin Ward. Coach, appreciate you joining the program. How are you on this fine summer day here in June?
Yeah, Nick, man, I appreciate being with you. All is good. You caught me at a point where I'm actually like here in the office at West Point, been on the road quite a bit over the past few weeks and will be for the rest of the summer. So just enjoying a couple days at home right now and glad we got a chance to connect, talk some wrestling.
Absolutely. When you look at this summer so far, you're coming off a pretty good season at Army, 7-4 as in terms of duels last year, six NCAA qualifiers, and Ben Pazuk was an All-American at 174. I believe the first since 2008. So let's rewind a little bit. Just a quick recap on last season ending in Kansas City. It turned out to be a pretty good year for you guys up in West Point.
Yeah, I think. Last year it's probably one of the proudest seasons that that we've had. Probably one of the proudest coaching performances I thought that myself and our staff have had in my coaching career. So we started out the season and wasn't spectacular the way we started. We got beat up pretty good back in early November, and then knew pretty early on in the season it was going to have to take a lot of progress for us to get to a point where we could even be competitive at the end of the year. And so we just really made a commitment to focusing on improvement and progress and getting better every day. And then by the end of the year, had a pretty good team that accomplished quite a bit. So, we're super proud of it.
When you talk about a guy like Ben Pazuk, who went out as a senior, again, All-American, great run for him in Kansas City, it was a long time since Army was on that stage of where, yes, they have it All-American. Was there something where you're thinking in the back of your head that proverbial monkey is off our backs now? I mean, was that the breakthrough performance you guys were waiting, even from an individual standpoint?
Yeah, a couple things on that. I do have thoughts. One, Marcus Hartman was named an All-American, the year that the tournament shut down because he was going in as, a top 10 seed. And I thought Marcus really had a chance. And he deserves the title of being an All-American. I really believe that. Ben Harvey was in the round of 12 twice. And was going into the to the national tournament his senior year, that same year that the tournament got canceled. Where Ben Harvey, it was so close, a sophomore and junior year, getting beat in the round of 12, and didn't have a chance his senior year. And then Benny Pazuk this year, it's his fourth time qualifying. He's been good enough to place there at that tournament for his entire career, and finally got it done. But honestly, Nick, I think that I think a lot of our fans and people outside of our program probably felt that weight of needing somebody on the podium a lot more than I did. Because honestly, I look at that, it's so freaking hard to place at the national tournament. And we've had guys that are really competitive, had awesome careers, so much to be proud of. And then just, in one match, it hasn't worked out for them. I don't consider that a failure, but it's just not quite what you wanted. But I've never felt that personal weight of we have to get somebody on the podium, have to get them on the podium. I was just really happy for Ben that he got to do it because he's worked really hard. He's been close. And then to finally, know that he's going to stand on the podium on Saturday, I was really just more happy for Ben than anything else. But then, I really did, I got a sense from our fans and our alumni after the tournament and how much it meant to them. And I think they felt the weight. And so many texts were hey, thanks, coach, you did it. Thanks. And I'm like, wait a second. We've been doing pretty incredible things for 10 years. But just that one accolade, meant a lot to a lot of people. So, more than me feeling satisfaction, I just feel pride that our fans are able to have that feeling. That's what feels good, is our fans are able to celebrate.
And correct me if I'm wrong. It's only been 3 months, and of course, I have a lot of things running through my head. But I believe in Kansas City, you had Ben Pazuk from Army, and then you had Navy and the Citadel also get All-American. So all the service academies with wrestling were represented on the big stage. And if I'm forgetting somebody, forgive me. But I think that was an awesome experience for all the fans in Kansas City to see all these service academies, and obviously Wyatt Hendrickson, of course, from Air Force. When you look at all the service academies were represented with All-Americans this year.
Yeah, pretty cool. And I think it probably just shows. Now, look, if you want to look at, it's so interesting because, West Point, Navy, Air Force, all three put people on the podium in three very different ways, where, three different performances that led them to the podium and three very different styles of wrestling. And, but it really just shows that you can do it. It just takes somebody that believes that they can, has the ability, has the belief, and things work out for them. So I like the fact that it shows that you can do it at a lot of different places, so all of the reasons to not consider a service academy are out because, three different schools showed that you can stand there amongst the nation's best at the toughest tournament, maybe in the world. So that was, I think, a pretty cool moment.
You're an Oklahoma State guy, so you come from a traditional wrestling power among the college elites, among the programs that go back the last 50 plus years.
Yeah.
When you took this job at Army a decade ago, what did you notice then about that opportunity, and what have you learned over the course of these last 10 years saying, as you just mentioned, you could do it at a service academy. Make no mistake about it, you can have a lot of success at a service academy. You don't necessarily need the elite programs to do what these great things are on the mat.
Yeah. I mean, when I took the job, I just recognized that there's a lot of potential here, and I thought there was a very big gap between the way the program was performing and what the potential and the cap was. And that's exciting. Like when you're looking at a job, that's really exciting to think that there's an enormous gap and a lot of room for growth. To me, that was my perspective at the time. I still believe it. I still believe we have a ton of room to grow. But that's really attractive when you're looking at a job. I think, what have I learned? I learn a lot, every day or every week that you're here. You learn a lot from the people you're coaching. You learn a lot from your peers that are around here. I mean, West Point's a place with some of the most powerful and influential leaders, in the country, if not the world. So you can learn a lot about the art of coaching and leadership every single day that you're here. What I learned about our program is that we can continue to go after and recruit and get some of the most driven, talented, motivated kids in the country. And every year, I believe more and more is possible. We're here. So I learned not to put a cap on what I think we can accomplish here. I think more than anything, that's probably one of the most important lessons you learn.
Speaking of accomplishments, the summer's been very successful for you guys at the U23 level. Lucas Stoddard and Charlie Farmer going over to the U23 Pan Ams, and Stoddard also qualified for the World Championships. What have you seen from those two guys, and what have you made from your guys competing on the freestyle scene, international scene, just trying to get to those tournaments later this year, and what that could mean going into next collegiate season?
Well, I mean, I think it's just because we've made a commitment to training as year-round as we can. And both of those guys wrestled in Vegas at U20s last year. And I don't think either one of them placed. And Chuck may have been pretty close, but Stoddard really wasn't very close. But those experiences, the point I'm making is that when you invest in wrestling year-round and you invest in going to these competitions and training, like it really is an investment. So that what we did last year was an investment into their production this year, and then the progress that they've made, and then ultimately their performances in Geneva, Ohio a couple weeks ago. So just really excited for them. They're two different guys. That's a 125 pounder and a heavyweight. Where Chuck he's never been a full-time starter at 125. It looks like he will be next year, or he's the favorite. Stoddard stepped in this year and started as a freshman, qualified for the NCAA tournament. But they have different ways of going about it, and Chuck is in the wrestling room every single chance he gets. Like he lives here, and to see that hard work pay off for him, really exciting. Like as a coach, you just get excited for your athletes that they're able to be rewarded for the work that they put in, because you see it every day. Like you never have to tell Charlie Farmer to pick it up or work harder. Sometimes you got to tell him to get the heck out of the room, like go take a break, and then to see him get rewarded for that, you just feel happy for him. And then to see Lucas like a breakout tournament, and really honestly kind of smashed his way through U23s. And now he gets a chance. Like to me, I love that both of those athletes, and Lucas in particular, because he gets to go to on more trips now. Like he gets a chance to rub elbows and be around elite performers. And he's going to learn a lot from that. So he's going to learn a lot from going to Pan Ams. He's going to learn a lot from the world team training camps. He's going to learn a lot from going to the world championships next year. I hope he accomplishes his goals while he's there. I hope he comes back with 2 gold medals. more than anything, I hope he makes the most of the experience that he gets.
For those who are not too familiar with the history of your guys' regional training center up in West Point, what was that like 10 years ago when you came into the job and compared to what it is now? So I feel like, from at least what I'm guessing based on what you're telling me, there's more of an emphasis on the year-round wrestling, the freestyle or the Greco-Roman training, trying to get to these world championships, these Pan Ams, train for the Olympics. I feel like there's more of an emphasis on that from your program within maybe the last couple of years, maybe it was early on. What's your take on that?
Well, I think, I mean, it's something that we identified pretty early on, and it's been kind of a slow cooker, to be honest. It's like we didn't light it up right away. We use our RTC in ways that we think are best for our program, to get more access to training opportunities for our team, to bring in anybody that's eligible to be around to train. And then we have a few senior level athletes around. So Fabian Gutierrez is here training, Vilray Baker, Sophia Macaluso, they're here training. We got Mike Rogers here. We're going to add some more. I just think it just makes sense. We'll probably get into the NIL conversation, but at a school that doesn't really not allowed, like we don't participate in NIL, we can move that money over to our RTC, and we can fund travel and trips and training and training partners and coaches here. So, I mean, it's something that we've thought was really important. We've made an investment in. We're going to continue to do, and it's fun to see it pay off.
When you look at that NIL conversation, the transfer portal, of course, people think about, all right, the Power 5 schools, or now the Power 4 schools, especially in football and basketball. They look at that and they go, okay, it's free agency. Who's going to offer the biggest NIL bag, or where's the best opportunity in the portal so that there's unlimited transfers. Service academies are different, and we just saw a recent example with Wyatt Hendrickson, who had the extra year due to the COVID waiver. He leaves Air Force after graduating, goes to Oklahoma State, but I believe he needed special permission to even do that. So when you look at the challenges that service academies face against, when it comes to the portal NIL, are there advantages and disadvantages to that in your mind? I mean, how do you guys navigate this space whereas the college landscape just keeps changing, it seems like, year to year?
I think it's all advantageous for us, to be honest with you. I mean, it'd be pretty easy to say, no, we want to get in the NIL game. Yeah. We want to be able to offer a bag to these kids too. But let's be honest, how many are getting it? Most of the money is going to the transfer portal kids anyway. We don't recruit the transfer portal. So, I mean, for us, what I love about it is that everybody on our roster is on a full scholarship and gets a paycheck every month anyway. Mm-hmm. So we've been doing NIL for years, just before everybody else did, or before it was legal for everybody to do it. We have a great opportunity for anybody that comes to school here. They're going to get amazing education. They're going to make money while they're doing it. They're going to have a job the day that they graduate. They go on payroll and have this opportunity. And on top of that, like you mentioned, the landscape is changing, and it's changing rapidly, and it's about to really probably shake up here over the next few months and next couple of years. We stay the same. Like we're going to change and adapt and get better, but it's not going to be these like huge shifts that you see at every other school. We can continue to recruit kids and promise them that, look, we're going to honor our commitment to you and coaching you really hard and keep bringing in great recruits year after year. But you're going to graduate with the people that you came to school with. You're not going to have a senior day photo with guys that just showed up 3 months ago, and you've seen that. Like, yeah, you've seen it, like this band of brothers, and they've been together for like 5 months, and they're all 23 or 24 years old. And it's like, that's the game. I'm not mad at anybody for playing it. I'm just honestly, like, I really appreciate that that's not us.
I think that's a good way to look at it, especially for schools like yours, Navy, Air Force, you name it. You mentioned it's an advantage. I got to imagine it is, especially when you're selling it to a 17, 18-year-old high school senior that you want to bring into the program, saying, hey, you're going to be here all 4 years, and then you just basically get out what you put in. I mean, is that the mentality you kind of approach through the majority of your guys' recruiting?
Yeah, I mean, I think we have to recruit kids that love wrestling. Like, really, it's one of the most important things in their life, but they're also willing to look past the sport of wrestling, not past it, but maybe they know that it's going to end someday. Mm-hmm. And, like, okay, you go to a school, maybe they offer you $50,000, and then you find out what state and federal income taxes are. $50,000 is not $50,000, and then 3 years later it's gone. You don't have any money left. And then what do you have? Well, at West Point, you're going to have money in the bank. You're going to have a job, and you're going to have like a network and a career that you wouldn't have access to otherwise. So we're going to continue to recruit people like that are willing to look at the big picture, that absolutely love wrestling and want to be NCAA champs, but also think that the big picture is really important.
I like that approach a lot. So looking ahead to next season, I saw a date already that's set in stone, a very unique event on November 8th. You guys and the Citadel will wrestle on the flight deck of the USS Yorktown. I love this. I love these unique venues for wrestling matches. I think, what was it, Bucknell or one of the other schools, I forget now, Campbell wrestled in a barn against Wyoming or whatever the case was last year. How did this event come together? Because I'm really interested in this now, and wherever it's streamed or how it's going to be shown to the world for the people who can't be in attendance, that's got to be really cool. Having a duel on the USS Yorktown.
So I've always like you, I've always appreciated these events. Like we went out to San Diego a couple years ago and wrestled on the deck of an aircraft carrier there. We went down to Fort Liberty in North Carolina and wrestled there this past season. And it was Ryan LeBlanc at Citadel called me and said, "Hey, we're working on this thing. Would you like to do it?" And I was, well, hell yeah, we're in. Just mark it down. We'll wrestle whoever. So it's going to be really cool. It's right outside of Charleston. I think it's Mount Pleasant, South Carolina, just right across the bay or ocean river, whatever it is. It's like right across from the Citadel. And we're going to wrestle there on the deck of the USS Yorktown. It's us, Citadel. A couple more teams are going to be announced, and the streaming arrangement's going to be announced sometime soon too. But, for me, like, I love the idea that we can give our athletes experiences. You want to give them experiences and moments that they can remember. And wrestling in like unique situations, unique settings and venues, that's an opportunity to, give them an experience that they wouldn't have otherwise, that they're not going to get at very many other schools. And hopefully, if you do that and they're prepared and they wrestle well, then they have great memories. Like, you don't want to go there and lose. That's not a great memory. You want to go in these unique environments and you want to perform well. And if you do that, you got good memories.
I wanted to ask you more about duels, obviously, as we move on here in this conversation. But I like the fact that you mentioned experiences, and it depends on what school you go to. Some atmospheres are better and bigger than others. They're more unique than others, and sometimes some colleges just have they just have duels just to have duels. It just really depends on who you ask. But I like the fact that you guys at Army are willing to go down and wrestle the Citadel on an aircraft carrier. And doing other stuff like that. What else comes to mind for you when it comes to these experiences, and what can make these duels more unique for the wrestlers' experience, and obviously from a fan perspective as well?
I mean, I think duels are like the NCAA tournament is incredible. Like the atmosphere at that tournament's second to none, and it's great. But duels are really like what can make this sport special. You can package it. People can watch it. It's one school versus another. And listen, going to the national tournament's an experience unlike any other. Where you go there and there's a couple teams that'll take their full lineup every year, but it's not many. You can count them on one hand. How many times do you get to compete on a big stage where you line up and left and right, there's your teammates and there's your brothers, and you're going to go out there and you're going to compete together. You go to the national tournament, our 25 pounder wrestles at 11 a.m. and then the heavyweight wrestles at 3 p.m. It's just like, it's not they keep a team score, but there's not this team feeling and element for 99% of the competitors there. There's just not. Duels, you have that. In duels, fans feel that. It's your team versus theirs. So I love it. Like, any opportunity we get to compete in a duel, like especially in a unique setting like that, we're going to do it. I love the national tournament, but I think overall, like, the sport of wrestling's really foolish for not really embracing the duel and making it a little bit bigger than it is right now.
So that was going to be my next question. I usually end the show with that, but I'll ask you now instead.
We'll kick off with it.
I got to ask everybody, because I'm a big dual meet guy. Being from New Jersey, I wasn't a great wrestler, but I just remember duels being just so big, even in the South Jersey area, and obviously, being a part of Rutgers for almost a decade as well. Just the duel is just so big in New Jersey and in certain spots. I got to imagine you are on board if the NCAA were ever to institute it in some sort of fashion, a dual meet championship to determine your team champion, while essentially leaving the individual tournament alone. Leave it as is, but the team champion essentially should be crowned via the dual meet in a 16 or 24 team bracket.
Yeah, or whatever size bracket. But I mean, we're like look what's going on in the sport of baseball right now. You know, there's this tiered kind of championship format where people are trying to get to Omaha. And I'm just bringing that up because it's going on right now. But yeah, I mean, absolutely. The team national title should be crowned in a dual meet championship. And I make a living in the sport of wrestling. I love it. I've been in the sport for a long time. I couldn't tell you how team scoring in a tournament works, you know, and neither can you, and neither can anybody else out there. I know, like, if you win, you get more points. If you keep winning, you get more points. If you pin them, it's even better. But the team scoring is not intuitive. It doesn't make sense. You're there to watch individuals perform, and man, they're freaking awesome, and it's fun to watch. But there's nothing like the finality of a dual meet, you know, and like, listen, you're going to have 90 minutes out there to decide who's the better team. And it's your team versus their team, not your team versus 70 other teams at the same time.
Yeah.
And I love it. And like you mentioned, you're in Jersey. Nobody's done it better than Scott Goodell. Like, we've been down there and we've wrestled in Jersey Mike's Arena, and the atmosphere is incredible. We also, you know, have been in New Jersey for open tournaments, and the atmosphere is not great. You know, I think the atmosphere, the ticket sales, the event, everything about it speaks for itself. It's just disappointing we haven't been able to get there yet, you know, as a sport.
Speaking of duels, and I looked at your schedule last year, and it just reminded me of a great duel you guys had last year against rival Navy, winning that one 18-17, and you've kind of turned the rivalry back towards in your favor a little bit. People know the Army-Navy football game. People know maybe Army-Navy in basketball or baseball, but it's mostly the Army-Navy game in football. That's, you know, that's the de facto event, which, well, it was a standalone weekend. Now, you know, the college football calendar is changing. You got to give the listening audience a glimpse into what an Army-Navy duel is like, either at home or away. Football's great. I love football. I've been to the Army-Navy game a couple times, you know, at least in terms of the media. But I need to know what an Army-Navy duel is like from your perspective, and the intensity of that rivalry when it goes to on the mat, when you have just 10 guys battling each other.
It's the best dual meet you've ever been a part of. Like, as a fan, as a competitor, as a coach, I mean, it's the best. Just because, not that in other dual meets you don't care, but, you know, this in sports, you'll hear people say sometimes it just means a little bit more. Well, this encapsulates, like, it means more. The thing about it is, like, both institutions want to win no matter what it is. So kind of the way I describe it is, back in the day when I was at Oklahoma State and we had really good teams, our biggest rival was whoever was ranked second in the country. You know, it could have been Minnesota, could have been OU, could have been, you know, whoever was ranked second in the country, that was our rival. We're at a place now where, like, you have this institutional rival every year, no matter what. And it doesn't matter what you're playing. You could be wrestling, ultimate frisbee, handball. I don't care, whatever the heck it is. Like, both teams and fan bases and administration, everybody really wants to win. How many times do you get to be in an event like that where there's so much riding on it and so many people care? That's special. Not a lot of wrestlers get to do that. We get to do it, and we get to do it every year. It's not everything. And my approach to it's probably a little bit different than some others. Like, it's not everything to me, but I do recognize that it's everything to a lot of people. Mm-hmm. So I don't downplay it. But it is the most intense, like, passion, the intensity. Just these guys want to win so freaking bad. You know, when they're out there, both guys, like, neither side's going to give an inch. And so, you know, like, if whoever wins is going to be the person that goes out there and just absolutely takes it, because nothing's going to be handed to them. When you see that 10 times in a dual meet, that's a lot of fun. It's the greatest dual meet in college wrestling.
I'm thinking outside the box here because we've seen duels be in football stadiums. I know, you know, Rutgers has done it twice. Iowa and Oklahoma State did it a handful of years ago in front of 40,000 people. I got to think we can throw Army Navy. You probably do it earlier in the year, obviously, when the sun is still out.
Yeah, February.
I feel like you could put Army Navy out in a football stadium, and you could sell out West Point, you could sell out Annapolis, Maryland, and you'll have, you know, however many people, all eyes on that duel. I feel like that could be just a huge event to kind of coincide with the football game as well. I mean, again, there's another outside the box idea for duels.
Man, I agree with you. And to be honest with you, I've tried moving the date of our dual meet. I've tried moving venues. But in a dual meet, it takes two to tango, you know, like you can't do it by yourself. And I've made some efforts. Hopefully we can, you know, get everybody to agree to it eventually. But I think we can move our dual meet off campus, put it in another arena, change the time. It doesn't have to be the last dual meet of the year every year. But I think there's potential there to really blow it up, like let everybody experience the rivalry and the intensity that goes into this matchup. Because right now, several thousand people do every year, but it's not 100,000. Where if we can do this at the right venue with the right streaming partner on the right date, we can get this out. And, next year, 20,000 people see it, and then 50, and then 100. We can blow this thing up. But I like the way you're thinking, Nick. So, if you got any venues in mind, we can chat, about that. But it's awesome. Like, if you ever get a chance to go to it, you have to go. Like, you have to go to the Army-Navy football game, and you have to go to Army-Navy wrestling. There's nothing like the intensity of both of those matchups.
Hey, I'm all for it. And if any way I can get involved for next season, believe me, I'm all ears, and I'll make every attempt to do so for sure. A couple more for you, Coach. Kevin Ward with me here on 3 Wrestling. Again, being an Oklahoma State guy, I want to talk a little bit about the landscape of the entire sport right now. Of course, the biggest news of the offseason was your former coach, John Smith. He stepped off into the sunset, walked off in the sunset, retired. Oklahoma State hires David Taylor. First on John Smith, just what he meant to you as a coach, what he meant to the sport of wrestling. I can only imagine the public perception of him is just beyond anything it's beyond comprehension of what he's meant to the sport. What did Coach Smith mean to you?
Well, he gave me an opportunity to be part of the Oklahoma State legacy. I'm from a small town, Soddy Daisy, Tennessee, and I wasn't a big wrestling recruit. And, the way things worked out, he gave me an opportunity to be part of the winningest athletics program in college sports. I'm really grateful for that. And then, I had opportunities to be on some really good teams there and worked my way into the lineup. And I have nothing but a lot of really good memories and a lot of gratitude for my time there. I think as you look at a sport, Coach really kind of transformed. I don't know, but he really put a mark on the sport, and it would look much different in our country today if it wasn't for the Smith wrestling family. His style of wrestling, the way that he won, the way he kept dominating for 6 years, it inspired a lot of people. How tough do you have to be the best person on planet Earth for 6 years in a row? It's tough enough to win one NCAA tournament and then be the best person on planet Earth for 6 years in a row. And to be that guy and then stay in the sport and give back through coaching really made an impact and kind of transformed, wrestling in this country. So just really appreciative, grateful for the experiences I had, and glad that he's able to ride off into the sunset and go enjoy his farm and his cows or whatever he's doing now. Yeah.
Ride some horses around or something. Did he inspire you to get into coaching? Was he a big influence as to why you wanted to make the transition from the mat to the bench?
I think, all of my coaches, honestly, since I was 5 years old, I can look back and tell you all these coaches that had a really big impact on my life, and really grateful for it. Grateful for the sport of wrestling. So did he play a part in it? Yeah. But listen, he's the head coach of an amazing staff that was there. All the assistant coaches inspired me too. My teammates inspired me. So I don't, you might not know this, but like I got out of the sport of wrestling for a few years. Like I stayed on, did my grad assistant time there at OSU and coached a little bit, and then I stepped away. I worked in oil and gas industry for a few years and really missed wrestling. And I think it was just, all the coaches, my teammates, just the sport in general, I missed that daily, strive for something better, I missed the feeling of trying to get better every single day. And, so, those are the reasons that I wanted to get back into coaching. I felt like coaching's a thing that, I can do what I love, which is the sport of wrestling. I'm a wrestling nut, I love it. But I also, I want to feel like I'm doing something where I can make a difference, something that's worthwhile, I guess, and fulfilling. And coaching, especially coaching at West Point, that's a way that I can feel like I get to check all the boxes. I've got my dream job. I get to coach wrestling. I get to recruit and coach awesome kids. And I get to feel like, I'm playing a small role in making a difference in people's lives that are going to make a difference in the world. So, but yeah, back to your question, John's definitely a big influence and one of the many influences I had to make me want to get back into coaching.
I like that answer a lot. Kevin Ward with me here on On3 Wrestling. I'll leave you here with this one, and it goes back to the landscape question, and it relates to David Taylor. Now, you mentioned before how your squad is, I don't want to say status quo, but you're not going, you'll adapt to the landscape, but you're going to keep doing what you're doing and keep striving for improvement year to year. But the landscape does shift now, I would say overall in terms of recruiting, what NIL dollars mean and maybe what the success rate of, maybe, the Penn State dominance not coming to an end, but maybe it starts to even out a little bit with David Taylor going to Oklahoma State. What was your reaction to Taylor leaving the Nittany Lion Wrestling Club, retiring from wrestling and now going into coaching for the first time ever as, the head coach of a storied program?
I mean, people don't like to believe me when I say this, but I try not to think about it, and here's why. I don't mean this in the wrong. I'm not a fan of Oklahoma State wrestling. I'm an alumni of Oklahoma State wrestling. I'm a fan of one program and one program only, and that's Army West Point.
Yeah.
Now, did I notice everything that's going on? Sure. Like I look around. I don't live, underneath a rock. But it's just not. It's not something that I need to spend a lot of time thinking about. Probably definitely don't need to share my thoughts on. I think they're going to be really successful. I'm proud to be an alumni of Oklahoma State, but like all of my time and energy and emotions go into one thing, and that's building the West Point program into the best that we can be.
I like that answer a lot, and I highly respect that, of course. So Kevin Ward, Army Wrestling head coach, with me on On3 Wrestling. Coach, really appreciate the time. It was a pleasure to talk to you. And again, we're going to do some crazy things with the Army-Navy duel. And
yeah, man, I look forward to it. Yeah, thanks for having me on. It's fun to chat wrestling. I appreciate you.
And no doubt. Kevin Ward, once again, on On3 Wrestling. Be sure to like and subscribe this video and check out our content at on3.com as well. Nick Kosko saying so long for another edition of On3 Wrestling.